Jake, first of all, obviously what you wanted there. Were you happy with everything you got out there?
Very happy. I think, I don't think. I saw today that when you get the balance right between your forwards and your backs, something we've been working on, scoring lots of points. You get players like Kirtley and you get front rowers like Wilco and Gerard. You've got to make sure you use both of them. So very happy the way that game panned out. When you're never ever going to be completely happy when team scores 3 tries against you, but at least I can tell you that's the second game and things look promising for us if we can just build on that from week to week.
But now the counter is that you're not going to have these guys for probably a while. I don't know how many of those Springboks are going to go on tour with you. But
all of them.
Are they?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking before you make selection choices, it's one of the difficult things, Brendan, because I just think it's important if they don't play for 3 weeks and then they have a 2-week camp. That means that for 5 weeks they don't play any rugby and then they play Scotland. So, I'm going to have to manage them, and so that everyone understands. We've got a guy like Ruan had 4 weeks off and he got called in late. A guy like Ulrich had time off and got called in late. So, it's not a necessity that they have to have leave now. But what it is between now and the end of April, I think we've got to give them the time that they need in terms of if it's 3, if they've had 3, they need 5. If it's 4, they need 4. And over Christmas, there's 2. There's a couple of games where I think we can rotate the squad and give them weeks off. That's all dependent on injuries, obviously. We need to build momentum. We need to get players playing. It's an interesting debate, and you weren't here the other day when I asked, which squad's going on tour? Is it the same squad? Is it a new squad? And I can't rotate a guy. I'm just using an example. Let's use Ulrich and Cameron. Which one's touring? And if I leave one and he doesn't tour, then I've basically wasted opportunity to play a guy for 3 weeks on tour. So at this point in time, it's not a sort of attack on anybody. I'm going to make sure that we give them enough time. I'm going to give them between now and April. They'll have time off. I've got certain injuries that will be back in 3, 4, 5 weeks' time. Then therefore I can rotate the squad again. But I'm going to keep trying to build the team as much as we can.
Just on the last one for me, just Viddy's performance, it showed again his class.
Yeah, just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I said it to you many times. He coaches when he's on the field. That's what he does so well. He coaches and he gets players around him to understand what they have to do. He's a massive asset for us. You don't play 97 times for South Africa in a group like this unless you can play. So we obviously very happy to have him, and now with a couple of injuries, especially Devin Williams and those guys, to have him around is obviously massive for us.
Jake, I can't remember seeing a more dominant scrumming display at sort of first class level. That was and your pack in general. It was just a massively dominant display, wasn't it? Well,
that's why I said, Ken. I think last year, the year before, for the last 3 seasons, we've scored the most points. We've had incredibly exciting backs, as you all see, and to get the blend right now. Not that we've ever had forwards but the forward pack is getting better and better and better. It wasn't only the scrumming. I think we kept them out maul-wise, many times as well. So it's just the balance of being able to physically front up as a forward pack on our ball and defending on their ball. And then the nice balance is a lot of those forwards scored tries as well, which means that they're not just big guys trying to stop mauls. They get around the field and they balance our squad. And our team the way we want to play. We're trying to find our identity and without going away from what the Bulls do well. And slowly every year, I think teams are now seeing that the Bulls have got a DNA that's a certain style that we enjoy playing.
Jack, when you look at that backline you chose, it's like a superstar backline. But I guess the name Buddha Chamberlain kind of pops out at fly half, and I guess in a way it put him under a lot of pressure, being the general of that back line and all those other stars around. Just how pleased were you with the way he played them?
Well, I mean, there's two things you've got to learn from that. One is I think Willie would have played a massive part from behind, telling him what we need and how we need it. So that goes without saying. But I asked him before the game as well, he ever played in a backline like this before? I mean, this must be the best backline you've ever played in. And, obviously the forwards dominated, which also helps. But it's nice to see a guy like that come in. And I'm happy for him because I think he's been longing to get a positive performance. Not only did he play well, he kicked well as well. So that's going to be good for us because obviously we got Yaku who can play 10 and we got Goose that can still come in at 10. And the more 10s you have, a bit like Chris Smith when he was here, was a bit underrated in terms of what he meant to our club. So to have a guy like Buta come in, put his hand up, play 10. It's the first start I think he's had at 10. He's been always off the bench playing at 15 and so that'll bode him well, I think. That's going to help us going forward on this tour.
Coach, you're going away now on tour for I think about 4 weeks. I guess this is the critical stage of the competition where you've got to lay the foundation and the tournament gains momentum now. What are the targets on tour for the next few weeks?
Well, I mean, the targets for a Bulls team, when you coach a team like this, is to win every time you play. I mean, I could never, ever sit here as the Bulls coach and say that we go into games, we want to win every time we play. The expectation of our supporters, expectation of the people that are involved in the club is that we as good as we can be every weekend. So, I know it's a cliche, but we'll take every game on its merits and we'll play, whoever we are presented against us and do as well as we can. But it's been proven before by Munster that if the team didn't start well, they still ended up winning the competition in the first year. And then it's been proven by sides that have dominated early on that have gone on to win the competition as well. So there's no remedy, I think, or there's no recipe. What we've got to do is make sure that we're as good as we can be every single weekend.
Jack, they were very disruptive, especially in the rucks, and your team stayed calm. Probably kudos to your captains for not getting frustrated. I mean, that's
Jeez, Anne-Marie, I'm so glad you asked me that question or you made a statement like that. Remember, I sat here a couple of months ago. We spoke about Ruan Nortje. Is he a good captain? Is he? And it was all legit questions. He's young and look how he's matured today. Look at how he spoke to the ref. Look how he took control. Look how composed the team was. And that is, that obviously pleases a coach as well because there's other growth areas that we're doing well in as well, and that is one, is leadership. Getting a captain like him, he's still a relative novice in terms of leadership and captaincy, but you saw today, just having him there, just letting him talk maybe to the players and the referee, and I saw it many, many times, is a massive bonus for us. And he's grown. He's probably the guy that's grown the most since I've been here. Look at playing the All Blacks twice, winning a rugby championship from a guy that was a nobody. Let's be fair. He was a club guy. No one knew about him. They wanted to know if he was heavy enough. All that sort of stuff. So his leadership and the way he played. The way he finished that game at the end there as well was. He looked like he was fresh. So I'm really pleased for him. I'm really, really happy that he's growing and he's getting better because he's only going to get better for us. He's young. He's still a young guy.
Ulrich at 8 for the Springboks, at 7 for the Bulls, and not necessarily very comparable. And then Cameron Hanekom. What's your plans with those two going forward?
Look, I've said to them already that combination has got a certain way they can play. But we've got Johannes who can play 7. I've got Ludwig that can play 7. They're a little bit more like the Springbok mould. In other words, Ben Jason Dixon or Peter Steff. And I'm talking about from a line-out option. I'm not talking from an ability option point of view. But so there's another way we can do that. I've said to you before that Ruan Nortje can play on the blind side as well, a bit like Sosa has for South Africa. And then let's not forget Kubus Visas played 7 flank as well for Sale. So I think for now, the combination of having Cameron who wants to play every week and wants to try and, do as well as he can is suiting me, but there's nothing to stop us from moving Ulrich to 8 and playing different guys at 7 and seeing how that pack, obviously blends as well. So we're in a very, very good position now in that I I'm not sort of restricted to only playing that as a back row. I mean, you consider Kaba played last week, he played well. Marku played really well today. Marcel can still play 6 as well. So what I'll do in the next couple of weeks as well, I'll probably try and see how the other combinations look. So as I said, I think we're in a good place now because there's so much competition as well. It's a bit like the box. Now all of a sudden no one knows who's going to play. No one knows that if he doesn't play well enough, he can lose his place. And that puts coaches in a good place because you can. I mean, even Gumedi, I didn't talk about him, but you've got Gumedi that can play there as well. So we have more than enough that we can try. And I think, but what we'll do is we'll look at the weather. We'll see where we're playing. We'll see what grounds we're playing on. We'll see what the weather's going to be like, and then we'll pick a team that can play in those conditions.
Just one more question about Kobus Wiese. That seems to be a good acquisition.
Sheesh.
Very physical.
Well, he can stop them all. That's one thing I can tell you. If he stands there and he opens his arms up like this, it's bloody difficult to get around him. And I know that Akka told me when he came here. Akka, as in Van der Merwe that played hooker with him, said the strongest scrummaging lock he scrummed with in his career, and no doubt in his mind that he's the guy who stops the mauls the best in the time that he's played. So, yeah, he's a massive acquisition for us. And what I really enjoy is he's playing, sometimes 80 minutes. So it's not just he's a big guy that sort of you have to substitute all the time. He's playing, he can play 60, 70, 80 minutes, which is a massive bonus for us.
Jake, you speak of Ruan in particular and his growth, but what of Gerard Steenkamp, who also you'd see the potential coming through before he joined the Boks, but he's come back as a totally different scrummager now. Yeah, well, he's cut his beard. He says first time he says he hasn't had a double chin, so something is working. But I mean, if you look at all of that, 4 years ago when I was sitting here talking to you, Grobis was here and he was young, and Gerard was here and he was young, and Ruan Nortje was young, and Ulrich was very, very young. I mean, now all of a sudden they're maturing, this group. They're starting to become bigger, stronger, older, wiser. I mean, it's still going to take time because I think props aren't at their best when they're 26, 27. They get better. And I know Chris sitting there, and I remember sitting here and him asking me, your front row and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, now all of a sudden they're maturing. They can scrum at test level. And when they come back to club level, like you saw today, they just take another step up, which is fantastic for us as a club. Speaking of maturation in particular, let's talk about the tour in particular. One of the key themes from last season was pacing yourself through the league stage, something you did very well. Then unfortunately the finals is a different story. But how important is just pacing the performances to ensure that while you still keep winning based on this momentum, but ensuring that you don't get lost in the rat race? Because this point this is an easier period for the European teams as compared to the SA teams.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's easier for them because they've got emerging. I spoke to that Ulster coach, and they've got 6 or 7 guys at that emerging tour as well now. So that puts them under pressure as well. And then they got the end of year tour coming now. So the Irish players will be all drawn into November as well. And then they got 6 Nations coming up in February. So when you look at the next couple of months for the Irish teams, they've also got to box clever about how they play and what they can get out of this block of games. But the lesson, I think what we learned last year is the same we're going to apply. We need to rotate the squad. We need to try different things. We need to be brave about putting players into positions and into situations where they can grow. I mean, a guy like Butter kicking for poles today needs to feel that pressure. A group of players coming off the bench, and again, young group. I mean, and Hendrik's still young as a loose-head prop. Sintu's young at our club, and as in he hasn't played much for us. And then to restrict Ulster from getting 3 tries, not 4, because what would have happened a year ago, we would have given them the 4th bonus point try. And then when the log comes out at the end of the season, all these 1-pointers are the things that determine whether or not you go through or whether you get a home semi-final or final. So I look at today's game and I see we've grown by the fact that it didn't matter whether we had won, we weren't going to give them a bonus point. And I can say it that a year ago we were probably naive and thought, we've won the game, and if they scored the 4th try, I wouldn't say we wouldn't worry about it, but we would have thought we've done enough. Today, first time since I've been here, that we've scored the last try in the game, which now is a massive difference to the mindset of where we are as a group.
Like they say, 13 is the most difficult channel to defend on a rugby field, and Moody did brilliant today. I mean, the way he stopped their momentum was probably the most underestimated performance of all. Do you see him settling in as a 13?
Yeah, I think long term that's what he'll do, because if you look at the outside backs for South Africa, and me being fair to him, that's probably the position that I think he can get fast-tracked as quickly as possible. And you're right. I mean, defensively today, every time they went towards him, I didn't panic, because he's a very good defender. He's actually one of the best tacklers I've ever coached. So, but I think the one thing we have seen with the Springboks, and it's not something we're trying to do because of that, is versatility. Versatility is massive. If you can play different positions, because the combinations that you can put on the field are obviously depending on who you play and which conditions you play in. But I think Kane, and I just said to him when I came in, I said, well done. That's really what I'm looking for as a centre. And him and David, they're both good ball players. They're both tall guys. They can stand up in the tackle. They defend incredibly well. They're quick for inside backs, because both of them have played on the outside before. So yeah, it is something that I'm going to have to settle on going forward. But it's also injury dependent and who we rotate. But he's phenomenal. I've said that many times to you, that a guy like his age who can play 13, 14, 15. I mean, that's an incredible skill and attribute to have in a country like this.
Then just on goal kicking, you used free guy today.
Yeah.
You learned something from the Springbok setup.
What about kicking for poles? No, I think what happened is Butter, when he got a bang on his leg, I think he chickened out and said someone else can kick, which is quite clever. He wanted 100%. He wanted to make sure he gets picked for next week. But it's also, as I said, it's so nice to know that you have different guys who can kick, because that's why Keegan was on the field as well. He's a goal kicker. And it's nice to know that he can double up as a goal kicker. I mean, it's a massive bonus when you've got more than one kicker on the field.
Welcome to wrap it up.
How's it, Jake?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are there any injury concerns after the game?
No, just stitches. Guys with stitches. They're all arguing with each other who stood on who and who. So I was listening to Ulrich. He said, no, he thinks Marco stood on him by accident on that one exit. So, but it's just stitches. And it's funny, if I stand and look at them, like every guy's cut on his right eye. So Kobus, Gerard, Cameron, Ulrich, it's starting to look like a group photograph.
Jake, just a final question, maybe. Naturally, the URC final was a massive blow for the Bulls.
Yeah.
What's the mood like in the squad now? Obviously, Springboks coming in, big boost, and then end of the year, some of the Springboks will rejoin the Springbok squad again. What is the mood like in the squad now after that final?
Yeah, I want to just say that you know me well enough to know I don't like losing, and we play in every tournament to win. There's no doubt in my mind that with what we achieved in 3 seasons with the group we had is far exceeded anyone's expectation. Is it easier to accept that you lose? Of course not. Is it does it make it easier when I think at night that we could have won both finals? Of course not. But I think one thing that is a thing of our club, and I'm talking about from the leadership down and from above me too, is that where we started and where we are now, I think every guy that's involved with the Bulls would have taken that. Losing 2 finals is obviously not ideal, but you can see the club's getting better and better and better. And just come out of a Currie Cup, and we had about 15, 16 injuries. And so when I look at that, the morale is unbelievably high now. Don't underestimate the fact that some guys have gone off to the box and they've won a rugby championship for the first time in 15 years. So now, selfishly, I suppose they've won something, and now they feel what it's like to win a trophy as well. So, I recall a story once where Frans Steyn missed a kick to win the Super Rugby. And then 2 weeks later, we beat Australia with 2 drop kicks at Newlands. And I said to him, which one would you prefer? And I'm not going to tell you what the answer was. But I knew which one I wanted is that I wanted him to kick 2 drop kicks in a test match. So the mood is good. I mean, the mood is really good. And I think it's also because of the fact that the Boks are doing so well and because a lot of the Bulls guys are getting a chance. And forgive me, but it's also nice to know the local players are getting picked for South Africa and they're still winning. And I've said that to you many times, that, you know, Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg playing overseas and you pick Ruan Nortje and you won't believe it, we win, you know. So imagine it was the other way around. Imagine they pick Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg, then the guy in the club goes, well, what do I need to do more to make sure? So I'm repeating, the mood is unbelievable. They're positive. They all want to be in the Springbok team. They all want to, but they also want to make sure they do what's right for the Bulls.
Jake, so
yes, Brendan.
One follow-up on that.
Hang on, Brendan. Let's just take JJ, then we can release them. JJ.
JJ who?
Hi, Jake.
Yes.
Congrats on the game. There's not really many negatives you can take out of this game, so congrats on that. When the Boks go on tour again, do you chat to SA Rugby to ask them, okay, listen, is a guy like Cameron, is he going to be included in the squad? Do you know, so that you can have a contingency plan in place going forward?
Okay, JJ, it's not JJ Adamsey, is it? Because I was going to say you work at SA Rugby, so I thought you could tell me. Okay. Now, JJ, let me quickly give you a feedback. I don't want this to sound like it's there is a meeting, I think, this week between Edgar and SA Rugby on what is the plan forward, and I'm sure then I will get a feeling for, you know, what we need to do and what contingency plan we can accommodate with. One of the things that is, and I think it's important to understand, the Bulls have got a 3-week tour, and then there's a Bok tour, and then we go again for 2 weeks. We play Connacht away and we play Saracens away in the first round of the Champions Cup. And so if I'm really unfair on a player, then he could be away for 11 weeks, and that is also not fair on a rugby guy who's got a young family. You know, look at a guy like Gerard's got a young baba, 1-year-old. Marcus got a baba, 1-year-old. You know, some guys have just newly married. So I'm going to have to find a way in which we get a win-win. But I will say to you that every player at the Bulls knows that he doesn't want to just manage himself for Test rugby. He wants to manage himself for the Bulls, and he wants to make sure that he gives the Bulls every opportunity for him to do well for the Bulls. So, you know, I can't ask for anything more than that when I go into a change room and every player says, you know, I want to play for the Bulls and I want to make sure that I give the club everything I want, or that you need.
And then just on Kainan, you mentioned now that you see him as a 13. What's the plan when Kirtley is off to Japan? Because you know that Kainan can also be just as great on the wing or on fullback.
Well, he'll play both. I mean, I'm not just going to ring fence him, but I mean, we've got a Piwe Gianti who's a Springbok, and Seb de Klerk can play wing, and then I've got Sergio Peterson and Devin Williams that are injured that can come back as well. So I suppose what it means, JJ, it depends on which kind of backline we put on the field. It depends on, as I said to you, who we're playing against and what conditions we're playing in, and it depends on injuries, whether or not we have, you know, certain players available. But, you know, I'm very comfortable that whatever backline we pick with, whatever combination we have, left footers, right footers, big wingers, small wingers, quick wingers, you know, tackling centres, whatever the story is, we can put a team on the field that can offer whatever we want for that weekend.
Last
Recording
question.
stopped.
It's just Loftus wasn't full today, but what do the Bulls need to do to actually get more spectators at the stadium in January when we have another home game?
Is keep winning and keep picking Springboks.
Okay.
Those are the
Thanks,
recipes.
Jake.
Thank you.
Good luck on tour.
Thank you.
Jake, sorry, I just wanted to follow up on the question about picking local players. I know
Yes.
it's a drum you've been beating for quite a long time.
Yes.
This season, all 11 Springboks that were debutants were all from the URC.
Yeah.
So do you think that will...
And the first time they won in 15 years in the rugby championship. So no, I'm saying it's been proven, and I'm not saying it tongue in cheek. I'm saying so it can be done. So anyone who doubted whether or not we use local guys, therefore the standard and the caliber and the game would change. So I don't know. I know what you're going to ask me. I don't know what that means going forward. But what I can tell you, it sends a great vibe in our club, because if you're playing here and you're getting seen, I use Ruan Nortje as an example. I mean, he's now beaten All Blacks twice, won a rugby championship. He was nowhere a year ago. And I can tell you, we were negotiating about should he stay, should he go. His agent thought maybe he should go and play in Japan. I'm just using... But the reality was, if he had gone, I'm 100% sure they wouldn't have brought him back to play. I'm 100% sure. So the model of keeping him in our system has worked. Thank you. Thanks guys.